Home in Full Color, where we live life in high definition. So I have two guests today. I've got Shawnee Powers and Kathy McRae. Now, we are three good friends, as well as three overstimulated mothers. We all happen to be business owners too, which is a completely different variable that not everyone in the audience will understand, which is fine because you still get the overstimulation. So kind of how I run a podcast is we just talk through it. So it's Mother's Day week when this is releasing. So the first thing I'm going to say is Happy Mother's Day to all three of us.
Happy Mother's Day too.
Thank you.
Likewise.
I think of as Mother's Day as the fiery burning pits of the 7 levels of hell. No offense. It's because it's my Christmas. It's all
It's
all
your
of
Super
it.
Bowl.
It's awful. It's lovely though, in the sense that we get to be in everybody's yard and their homes. Like it has a different kind of gratification. And people always kind of like worry about me by the weekend. Well, we're 85% wholesale, 15% retail. Retail, yeah, it's kicking. They're pumping. That's a whole nother bag of tricks. But by that time for me, I'm like, whew, the plants are in the garden centers. If they don't have it now, they're screwed.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of off the hook come the weekend. Now, that's not to say I'm not stopping and checking, but honestly, like, what do I want for Mother's Day? I want to be by myself with a book and possibly a glass of wine and be able to read a book from cover to cover with no interruptions on my back patio, hopefully with my dog in my lap. Like, that's what I want. So I wanted to give space for the overstimulation that any mother feels. So that's where I'm going.
I love it.
Well, okay, so let's qualify. I'm
Yes.
stepmom, twin 13-year-olds. I walked into that willingly, believe it or not. Shawnee, your story.
Yes,
How many children?
So I have 4 boys, all boys, who are 2 years apart. So just to put that into perspective, I birthed my youngest when my oldest was 6. So I had 4 children under the age of 6.
At the same time.
At the same time. Yeah. They were all with
Sounds
me.
Almost like Mother's
0
Day for me.
to
That's
6.
terrible.
Yes. And
Mind you, I wasn't the person who wanted children, so I should say that. And what's your story, Kathy?
So I am both. So I have a 13-year-old stepson who is amazing. And then I have a 3-year-old daughter. So I kind of have
It is a ball of sunshine and
yes.
sass.
Emphasis on the sass.
I adore it.
So
Her and Onyx
keep
get
us
along
busy.
really well because they're both sassholes.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's all right. And
Yeah.
I did call you that, Libby, and you and I can have words later. So
you might not watch
She will
this
give you a
podcast
piece of
till
her
she's
mind.
older.
Oh, I don't doubt it for a second. She has so much personality, but
Yeah.
each one of us kind of has a different perspective on this. Now, yes, we are all business owners, and I caught myself doing this last Friday. I walked into my house. My kids had been in their bedrooms working on whatever. They heard me come into the house, and I don't think it was because they wanted to come out and say hi. It was more of, what chore does she have me to do, possibly? Or, hey, what are we doing for dinner? Like, it could have been anything. I don't know. But I kind of just looked at him and was like, what do you need? Do you need something? You're hovering. Go back to what you were doing. And I stopped and I said, I apologize. I have been hit left, right, and center all day. I need a couple to just cool down. Can you peace out? And they're like, oh, cool. I'm going to go back to what I was doing. So they didn't take offense, thank goodness. But as a stepmom, I know that I have a little bit of a disconnect to that like biological mother thing. I don't feel this need. Like, I miss my children. I love my children. They're definitely my kids. But at the same time, I'm not going to coddle them. And I want to raise them up and push them and challenge them all the time. Our producer is getting us on set to make sure we are accurate. Not being sneaky at all.
Ninja-like skills.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't think that it's different for me, though, in the case of overstimulation. I mean, the best day is when you get uninterrupted time to be with your littles and get to have a quality experience. But as a working parent, that's not a reality very often.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like I've lived a few lifetimes,
Yeah,
honestly.
you have. Knowing your story, you've lived several
Yes,
lifetimes.
yes. And so I was in a really fortunate position as when my kids were really young, I was home with them. I did run a business back then too, but it was nothing to the magnitude that I have now, and helped their father run a business. And so there was still that aspect, but they were my everything all the time, all at once, everywhere, constant. And I really, I can say this with 100% authenticity. I loved that time with my kids. I absolutely loved being in their presence, being for everything that they needed, being at their schools. It was such a joy for me, but I was exhausted. I was
All the time.
exhausted
Oh,
all
yeah.
the time. I had those big old, dark circles under the eyes. People actually see pictures of me back then when I was raising my kids compared to today, and they think I look older 20
Back
years
then.
ago
Isn't it
than
funny
I
how
do
that works?
today.
That's
And
wild.
yeah, because it's a constant when you're dealing with little humans that are regulating off of you and your emotions. You're pouring so much of that energy into them that alone is an energy release that I actually don't have today, even though I still have children at home, one child at home that I never see because he's 18 and he has a girlfriend.
You
And
do
drives
get and drives and is independent. And you don't have to worry about.
Right.
There's
Yep.
other benefits.
knows how to feed himself,
Yep.
knows how to take care of himself.
Oh,
Yes.
the
yes.
glorious part of momhood, in my opinion, and I can't wait till you hit this, when you can leave them at home alone and they can fend for themselves and not light the house on fire. That's the other thing. But like that's
always a
glorious
possibility, though,
freedom.
isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
at any age.
4 boys. That's
Truly.
you know.
I mean, you probably have tested this
Yeah.
more than others.
I've put out a few fires, literally. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Well, and I mean, gosh, in a day at work, we're getting hit from, I mean, if you're in management or if you're somebody in just a regular position trying to manage your own stuff, like you could have a boss having a bad day. Like, I mean, there could be so many things that happen, right? And you're taking all that in and there's all the stimulation. Do you ever get in your car and you don't even turn the radio on and you get halfway home and there's been complete silence? And you're like,
Absolutely.
oh,
Mhm.
that's when I know.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
been one of those days. Or I get in the car and I was like, what is the heaviest metal I have? I'm going to turn it up and have a car concert and headbang the whole way home.
Or
Like-
sometimes I think that I want the music. Sometimes I get in my car and I'm like, yes, I want something energetic. I want this. And then I'm halfway home and
The
I
anxiety
realize,
comes on.
no, I need to turn it off. I need about 3 minutes of silence. I
Yes.
just turn it off right before I get home.
Yeah, you're like,
yes.
Yeah.
well, and I've caught myself going in to like cook dinner when I get home and I see all the chores that were done incorrectly and I'm snappy. Like I'm snappy. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, it's not their fault that I'm a working person that has had the shit kicked out of me all day. That is not their fault. They're just being teenagers and half-assing stuff. No big deal. Don't raise your voice. Just I'll go into the kitchen and try not to pay attention, just start cooking so that they just leave me alone. Like that's my other, when they see me go straight to the kitchen, they're like, "Ooh, I'm gonna
That's code.
I'm gonna stay out of the way." But I mean, and then your significant others are just like, wait, why are you punchy? And you're like, ask again. Are you gonna tell me to be calm now? Because that's gonna go over real well. Yeah, I'd try it. My husband will be like, you should take a walk in the yard or something or go somewhere for a minute. I'm like, well, I'm that bad. He's like, it's leaking out your pores. Like, oh, it's not good.
So
I'm getting better, but it's taken years because I mean, the kids came into my life when they were 4, and then we were living together by the time they were just before they turned 6, and so I'm a full-time parent all of a sudden, and we're half and half custody, but that means if you're a parent, you're a parent. Like that's period, end of story. And gratefully, I mean, and thankfully, we have a wonderful working relationship with their mother, and she's a friend of mine, so I don't have any ill will there at all, and it's
Yeah.
very cohesive, and I'm very fortunate for that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I do not discredit that at all. It's been interesting to watch friends. Like I get on the phone with her, and people are like, "Wow, Like, you guys really are friends. I was like, yeah, I don't have
Mhm.
any issue. And it didn't start that way. It wasn't easy at the beginning, but we built it
You
over
built
time.
that,
We
and you
built
built
it.
a team, which
Yeah.
is really cool.
Well, and Brandon said, my husband, he said, these are the rules. This is how I handle it. And he came from a divorced household. I'm from a nuclear home. I have no concept of that. So I had to learn. I had no idea how to be a step parent. I have no idea. I just thought of the evil stepmom on, Cinderella.
Mhm.
Like, and he did not
which
want
I
me to-
resemble at times. I mean, let's be
Oh,
honest.
seriously, I'm the strictest parent of the triad, and it's really interesting. Like, and I always say, a little bit of fear is healthy. It's okay to have a little bit of fear, but I mean, what do you deal with in a day that overstimulates you? Like, and to get home and be on your last nerve, and your daughter's just like, "Mommy, I'm so happy to see you," and you're like, "Okay, I gotta leave the day at the front door, and I gotta walk in my house." And you don't always get to do that, do you?
No, and especially, I mean, I think it's really indicative, and I know that you and Brandon are the same. When you have two working parents, there is no stay-at-home parent.
Nope.
And so one inevitably has to take the brunt of getting home first.
Yep.
And that is usually me.
Mm.
And so there's all of the responsibilities that fall with that, which is, yes, greeting your children, cooking dinner, kind of like getting your house set up for the evening.
Yeah.
And, my husband gets home quite a bit later than me. And so usually when he walks through the door, I just want him to have time with the kids. And
Yeah.
so it's all the other things. It's the laundry and the vacuuming and the cooking
Right.
dinner that I really don't have the capacity for, but I know he doesn't either. And so I forget where we learned this or heard about it, but maybe it was you. Was it you that told me like that you and Brandon say like,
Brene
hey,
Brown.
I'm at 10%.
Yep. It's
Was
Brene,
that you
It's
that-
a Brene Brown technique.
It's a Brandon. Okay.
Yeah.
And we've really started utilizing that. And there have been several days within the last couple of months where I'm not really able to articulate that I'm like at a 10.
Yeah. And you feel bad
I-
because you
I-
can tell he's probably at a 15.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh.
But he sees it and he recognizes it and he's willing to say, hey, I got this.
I can handle this part.
If you need, an hour or something in your room and just close the door, I've got dinner. I've got the kids. You go be by yourself.
Takeout.
And that is huge. That's a game changer for us to be able to communicate in that way where I have to recognize as well, like I'm not there and I
Yeah.
need a minute.
Yeah.
And that way I don't get to the point of snapping at my children
All right.
or,
That is-
reacting. Yeah, it's been a learning curve for sure. And my daughter's only 3. So us having 2 kids has only been in the last 3 years and really only in the last maybe year and a half where she's really demanding our attention
Sure.
and is the tiny terrorist that she is now, right?
Terrorist
Like,
is a wonderful word.
That's
I love
pretty
that
new,
little girl, but
right?
she is
like
totally
when
a
she was
terrorist.
only 18 months old, that wasn't a thing,
No.
It was you just adored her at all times because she was so cute. But now, like she's demanding. She's our boss.
Yeah.
She's
And
grown
she-
into her skin.
She has
She was
very strong
a
opinions.
Doompa Doompa on Halloween, and
Yes.
she is now in charge.
Mhm.
Yes.
very much so.
Yes.
So what the technique Kathy's talking about, I listened to it in a Brene Brown book, and her and her husband, when they get home from the day, they look at each other, and collectively their goal is to hit 100%. So if I'm at 25, I have to say I'm only showing up with 25%. So the other partner at that point has to say, okay, I got the 75. Or they're like, I'm at 40. How do we get there? What do you need? What do I need? And you give space for it.
Mhm.
And that's just a technique to kind of get a pulse because we're more marital and relationships fights happen. It's usually stress, overload, and money. So if you can kind of get through it and say, hey, we're trying to show up with 100. What do you have? What do I have? And what are we trying to make up the difference? Like, it simplifies it and takes the hard out of it. I
Mhm.
mean, we've been having things happen at work here where a lot of people are very invested into where Moss is headed because I restructured the entire company. We're into 4th generation ownership. For lack of a better word, I cleaned house. We had some other employee things happen, and now we're light on talent, but headed in a really amazing direction. And so it's a great opportunity. And then our largest competitor up in Washington just announced closing their doors. And so we have this awesome, like, picture perfect opportunity, but all of us are exhausted.
Mhm.
And the people that work for me are like, hey, I want to stand behind you. and they're so emotionally invested. I'm watching them get bound up, and I'm like, okay, hold on. So my tattoo artist, Shane, he's incredible, told me one thing one time, and it stuck with me so much. She said, there's two things in life. There's tasks and there's relationships.
Mhm.
And so anytime I look at a situation like, so I had one in our production department, I was trying to get output off of an assembly line. That's all it was. Trying to get the numbers up, and there was a lot of variables. And I went to the supervisor on a specific line, and they broke. Tears, eruption, cuss words, whole thing. And I was like, let's go. And she was like, you're not even mad at me. I was like, nope, you need to get it out. Let's depressurize the
Yeah.
situation. Say
Yeah.
everything you need to say. And she's like, and I went and checked in with her this morning, and I said, how are you feeling? She's like, thank you very much for letting me have a moment just freaking out.
Mhm.
And she goes, and if I ever tell you I'm going to quit like that again, know that I'll be here in the morning. I know that. I know that. You just needed a minute. And it was just kind of funny. I said, your only task is to manage input to produce an output. And she goes, and I said, where does people fall in that? And she was going, well, it's in every part. And I said, no, it's not. You are managing input to produce an output. And this person looked at me and was like, it really is that simple is what you're telling me. I said, yes, it is. And the second that you get people involved is where it gets mucky. So take yourself above it and take the emotion out of it. You're trying to produce something. You're trying to accomplish a task. So with motherhood, we are trying to keep our children alive and happy.
Mhm.
Sometimes we don't have enough to do that. We can't manage the input that's coming at us to produce an output going out.
Yep.
And so what do I want for Mother's Day? I kind of want peace and quiet. And I want to go do something that fills my cup.
Absolutely.
Well, and I'd like to speak a little bit to the single moms out there.
Oh my
Mhm.
gosh.
because
My heart goes out. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all in
Yeah.
a significant, a good
but I have
relationship.
been a single mom and a single parent and quite a few times during my life where that when you guys are talking about that 10% when you can look at your significant other and be like, I'm here.
Yeah.
So you get home, you've got 5%. You got to keep 4 children. alive.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
Yeah. You don't have a choice, but
There-
to
Tourette's
do
is happening in my
100%.
brain for you
Yeah.
right
and
now.
so but as that, I mean, as I look back on that, because at the time I was a single parent, I was in nursing school, I was working a nursing job, and I was raising my 4 children, and
No pressure.
no pressure, no, there was no stress. However,
For those who can't see us on video, there was a very sarcastic face.
I need a drink just listening.
Yeah, I
I
was
know,
like, I'm
right?
gonna start drinking right now.
now you can have a drink. Yeah, everybody take a drink. But no, the truth is that I had to regulate with my kids. Those conversations of mom's at capacity right now, or I'm so sorry, I can't address that right now. I need to work
You're
on
really
this.
leaning on the older ones to help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there was just that element of where you had to be so aware of the pressure you were putting on your own children
Yeah.
because as a human being, we break. As a human being, we have that pressure on our shoulders. And let's be honest, society expects mothers to nurture and hold and push into their children at all costs.
Mhm.
And that was definitely the environment I was raised in.
Yes, you were.
Intensely. And so being a single mom, being in the situation I was in, looking at my children, knowing that they are in a position of needing this extra added nourishment because of the single status of having a single parent, it was a difficult time. But my children are so emotionally aware. They're
Yeah,
very
I would
aware
say that about your boys.
of other people. Their emotional intelligence is very high.
Hi, Dave. Bye, Dave.
Hi, Dave. He's like, peace out.
Dave co-hosts with me a lot, so he's checking in on us, making sure we're keeping everything
We're
together.
awesome. So, I mean, there was skills that my children gained through those situations. And I think sometimes as moms, it's so easy to beat ourselves up that we're not providing our children.
I would speak to that about Brandon too, and you probably could speak to this as well, Kathy, because you have a divorced parents that raised you.
Mhm.
There is something that Brandon has an innate, like he has a thumb on the pulse. He's a single child with a mother who's been a challenge. Just she has mental health stuff that she's battled her whole life and just didn't have the skill set and the help to deal
the
with it.
tools. Yes,
Exactly.
yeah,
So
access.
Brandon carried a lot of that for her. And he has an innate ability to kind of see something I don't, that I'm just like, "Duh, I'm freaking out." And he's like, "You're just take a breath. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to handle this." And then suddenly, like, he's just kind of like a salve to an itch or a wound all of a sudden. And
Yeah.
I'm like, where
Yeah.
is that secret superpower that you just pulled out of your back pocket, asshole? Like, where's that every day?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something to be said for that, because you've got to figure out how to fit that need. And I mean, single parenthood, oof. I can't even speak to it. I have no concept of it. I do know, as the step parent on the other side, supporting a single mom, it's a struggle I don't always understand. And I would watch when she wasn't in a relationship, how kind of like, what does she need right now? Like, I caught myself checking on her because she got the same cold stomach flu that my daughter got last week. And I hadn't heard from her last week. So I, like, literally on the way home was like, I'd called you in the morning. I called her on the evening. I said, I was listening to my intuition. Are you okay? Like, I didn't drop out the kids. I didn't get a pulse on you. Are you all right? And she's like, that sucked. I couldn't walk for 3 days. And told me a very graphic story of how her and her boyfriend are much closer now. He had to take care of her. I was like, it was much to our last weekend stories. And so I was like, oh, okay, he's still with you. You're doing great. So it was just kind of like just taking that check-in with her. And I remember still past conversations when she was single. She goes, I'm the only one in this household.
Yeah.
I don't have any support. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm not hearing correctly. Okay, so I'd have to, like, think ahead to help, and not every single parent has the support on the other side to do that. Like,
Right. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's a battle, so and sometimes it's you're taking care of the home front, but then it's a battle with the other parent, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens more often than
what?
it should. And
Yeah.
and so it's there's and I mean, even now, even though I'm in a relationship, he's not present in my home as a parent.
No.
And so it's a very
And he has his own kids, and you guys have
exactly.
You have your own kids.
And so that element of like I'm all my son's got. His dad lives hours away and is supportive. I mean, he
they
he
see
has
each other.
access to parents and parent figures in his life, which is such a blessing. But at the end of the day, I'm the parent, and there's no other option for me to go, high five, I'm at 10%. Yeah. So I mean, and not to be in that victim place at all. It's an empowering position to have that time with my child, and that influence and that opportunity to really get to know him as a human being on that very intimate level, being the only parent he has to rely on, truly. But at the same time, just calling out to all you mothers out there that feel like when your plate is full, you don't have anywhere to turn. I give you kudos, and I'm sending you grace, because you deserve to give that to yourself.
Give yourself, like, it does not have to be perfect. It is okay if your hair is in a sloppy bun. Maybe there's bubble gum in your hair. It's fine. Just tuck it under the ponytail.
Yeah.
We're fine. You can have a stain on your shirt. You can have,
I wear wrinkled clothes all the time. And I hope they just unwrinkle by the time my meeting is.
Right.
Before I have to show up.
Brandon is like Mr. Straight Ironed. And I was like, whatever. I found it in a laundry basket. I know it's clean. He's like, which laundry basket? I was like,
good.
the clean one. It still smells good. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Check.
He's the one who seems to have it all together a little bit better than I do. But that's okay.
I think that, I don't know. I think as moms, especially in this day and age where we have social media, any media, but especially social media, telling us and influencing us and dictating to us what motherhood should look like. Right. And I know I certainly do not fit in that role.
Nope.
That what I see, I don't fit in that. Right. I don't have the luxury of.
You mean the perfect little ponytail with the Lululemon clothes on, and she's all trimmed straight
That
from
is
yoga
not
at
my
10
life.
o'clock?
I don't recognize that life.
No insults to those who can pull that off. Good for you.
we actually just had that conversation of, didn't we just have that conversation of like, I could never homeschool my children ever. Like that just,
Yeah.
that
I
doesn't,
I
could
live
have
for
never
work.
done that.
yeah, like I love working. I love, keeping busy. Not that any stay-at-home moms aren't busy, but like busy with my work, right? Like
It gives you purpose.
It's where my passion is, and it gives me purpose. But so does a mom. So does being a mom. I know that for me, I'm actually rereading the book, How to Do the Work
Okay.
by Nicola Pera.
I have not read that one.
Brace yourself, because it makes you take a real hard look at how you're parenting, how you've dealt with childhood trauma, even if you don't think that you have childhood trauma, because I didn't think that I did. I thought I had a great childhood. The deeper that I look at it, and maybe some ways that I was, parentified at a very young age, or was raised by a parent who I've now learned was not who I thought that they were growing up.
Yeah.
Things
From
like
the stories
that
we've shared, I'm like,
that hit you later, and you realize, okay, there's some trauma there, I guess. And to identify that within yourself, and then use that some to your advantage, and some like examples of what you don't want to be with your own children.
Sure.
And what a lot of this book talks about is, which it never occurred to me, is how overstimulation, stress, trauma response, when you're in fight or flight mode, which I think all of those things put us in that state.
Oh, yeah.
Overstimulation, I'm in fight or flight
Oh,
mode.
sure.
Yeah.
It's survival.
I'm bubbling to the surface, right? Yep. The stress level, the busyness, that I'm super guilty of overscheduling myself.
I have that same.
All of these things can literally transform your body and your mind on a molecular level, on a biological level. It's changing cells in your body.
Yeah.
And it
neural
manifests
pathways.
itself in disease, in mental health.
Yep.
I mean, in all these ways that I don't think on a day-to-day basis, like, how is my stress level affecting me? But when I read this book, and it's put right there, all the studies that have been done, all the research shows that this is how it manifests. And that for me, like when I go home and I can feel myself bubbling up, especially to my kids, and then I read that book, like what my own childhood traumas have done to me, that's where I have to say, okay, I have to recognize that I'm overwhelmed right now.
Yeah.
I have to recognize that I'm overstimulated. Mommy needs to go to her room.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's where my mind goes now,
Yeah.
is because I don't want, like you said, I don't want to give my kids a reason that when they're adults going to
They have
therapy,
to go to
that they
therapy,
go
yeah.
back and look and say,
Yeah.
my mom was always upset,
Right.
It's really hard. It's really hard to balance that, and to, put myself first. That's really hard when it is so
very tough.
ingrained in us that we put our kids first.
Absolutely. Well, and two, to recognize that I think trauma is part of every childhood. I don't want to diminish big T's versus little T traumas, right? Like
absolutely.
It's
but-
still trauma.
but there's elements of trauma, and it's the observation of your parents' actions too that go into play. Like parentified is a word I learned recently myself.
I don't know what parentified means.
Yeah, so parentified means that you were put in a position of feeling like you have to make
caretaker.
the decision
Oh,
and be a
you
caretaker.
were definitely that. And I
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and so and those were based on traumatic situations my parents were going through at the time.
Mhm.
And not that they were terrible people or that they were intentional in what they were doing, much like we are as parents.
Right.
Like we're
Yeah.
not trying to give our children trauma.
We're just trying to survive the day.
Exactly. and those little things can hit us. And our children are witnessing that. And so I think that's again, grace in the way that we behave with our children and the way that we ask for our needs to be met, to take time for ourselves.
Yeah.
Probably is going to teach our children more in the way of self-care and supporting people they love in their own situations of overstimulation and I get the benefit of witnessing that. I have 25-year-old children, right? I have all adult men. That just recently happened
Yeah,
a
it
month
did.
ago. And so I get to see how the conversations we've had, and I'll go back and I'll go, you know what, that was a really hard time and I was not in my best headspace and I apologize. And they go, I get that, Mom, and I can see that, Mom. And yeah, this may have made me feel this way or this way, but there's conversations that come from that that teaches them that empathetic response, and hopefully will benefit them in
new
relationships.
generation is a little bit more empathetic, unless they've been raised to not be, which happens a little bit in very traditional households. Was I PC enough when I said that?
Yeah,
Yes, I was.
I think
Okay,
so.
good. I was like, oh, I could have said something real stupid there. I'm good at that occasionally. Foot, mouth. My mom was raised by an alcoholic, and she was the youngest, and she made it an avid point not to raise us like her mother did. And she even avoids alcohol. Not all alcohol, but she stays, distant from it because she's like, nope, that has a stigma. I went through terrible, awful things. And I mean, I have a memory of trauma from that. But that overstimulation piece, I mean, I think to a single mom or a stay-at-home mom, either way, you are a CEO. And I am also a CEO. That shit is hard. You're a CEO. You're a CEO. That might not be the title we go by. But holy crap, every decision lands on you.
Yeah.
When I get home, I want somebody else to make a decision.
Absolutely.
But I don't want it to inconvenience me.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to get pissed.
Right.
But if
you
it's
want
the
it to
wrong
be
decision,
your
I'm gonna tell you.
decision.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Somebody else is like, I can't get this right, can I? And I'm like, all right, hold up. Ask a couple clarifying questions and then run. But I have to tell you the clarifying questions. If he doesn't communicate, I get mad.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, does this really matter? And that's when I realized, because of my trauma, I want to control things. Yesterday I felt a little out of control. What did I do? I went and picked up dog shit in the backyard because it was one thing I could control.
Well, and there's an end result to that.
I know. I didn't expect myself to be doing it either. All of a sudden I had a shovel and a bucket.
That is not
and I
my
was
choice
about
of therapy.
a third of the way through the yard, and I was like, I think I've only done this twice since we lived in this house. And I'm literally like, and then we get into a text message with co-parent, and I was supposed to pick up my daughter at 4:30 from her pep club. And because Macy couldn't do it, and then Brandon had work dump on him yesterday. So again, parent triad, trying to figure out how the hell we're going to collect all the children. And
and I love that there's 3 parents collecting 2 children.
Exactly.
I just have to point that out.
Well, exactly. And then there's a 4th pseudo parent on her side too, who's tremendously helpful. But when it came down to it, I was like, well, I will bribe her. I picked up all the dog poop so she didn't have to. So if she'll skip pep club, that would be awesome. And she's like, deal. You picked up the dog poop, I'll skip pep club. And I was like, yes. So it became it totally worked out. But it was one of those things I was like, okay, I need to control something. So because I felt like life was out of control. So it went sometimes when a mom is on a mission to taskmaster something.
Yeah, like cleaning out the pantry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. We feel like some part of our life is out of control.
Yes.
So we're trying to tackle something we can
control.
Well,
Well, and
if you throw that off,
right,
you're taking away my control. Stop.
Yeah.
I mean, I can appreciate the dog poop because I've done that myself. And Kathy, you're so lucky that you don't have to do that because
I have a very large pasture.
Well, that's true.
It's a mixture of goat poop and pony poop and chicken poop.
And
the dog poop is the least of our
right.
concerns. So
you're not picking that shit up. Yes.
Well, and normally I send 2 kids out. Well, the other one broke her ankle, and so the other sister is taking all the brunt. And that is my role in this scenario. Like, mom and dad can cuddle daughter, which is perfect. Like, going back to, as I said, I don't have that biological need. I want to push the one who has the broken ankle. Like, okay, all right. So yes, we're hindered, but we're not useless. Let's. And she's not leaning away from it. She'll have days where she's like, oh, this sucks. Like, we're at the mall. I'm trying to spend money on her, and she's like, I'm tired. I'm like. And I looked at her. I said, "You want to go to Barnes and Noble?" She's like, "Yes." Like, okay, I just have to find the right store. I see what's happening. But it was just one of those things that I am paying attention to my other daughter because she's taking the brunt of everything, and so I'm like, okay, if I can take one thing off Gwen's plate,
yeah,
and it became a bargaining chip. Winning.
Okay, so Jen said that her idea of a perfect Mother's Day was silence.
Mm-hmm.
Or a concert.
Oh,
Oh,
I would do a
okay.
concert.
okay. So
Concert with
one
my
extreme or the other.
Okay, so okay, I want an experience. So I don't if
Yes.
we've talked about this on a former podcast. I don't give gifts, I give experiences.
Mhm.
So I'll give concert
Mhm.
tickets, or we'll go to a show,
yeah,
or we'll
I
go
do that
do
a lot, too.
something.
Yeah.
So if we're making a memory, I'm in. And so like Mother's Day for me, I mean, what do you do in May? And there's always some kind of food. There's always sticky, gooey, not Jennifer friendly food. And yeah, my nickname at Yellow Brick is food allergy.
Food allergy.
Which I love. But PJ, when he's on, my other co-host is like, yeah, and all Jennifer can eat is air. I'm like, accurate. So with that, I lean into experiences. So if there was something to do on Mother's Day, which there's really not, I mean, there's the Vintage Vixens spring thingy, and sometimes that falls around the same time. But I want to go. No offense to anybody who makes these things. Do I want to go buy a whole bunch of knick-knacky crafty shit? Not really. That's not really my gig. I mean, sometimes a little bit here and there, but not a lot.
But if you could like go do something outdoorsy.
Yeah. If you
or...
I mean, May weather could be snow or sun. It could be
Mhm.
anything.
Mhm.
And so if there was something like activity oriented, oh yeah, I'm in.
What about you, Shawnee?
So I'm sitting.
Given that we
yes.
are all the providers of Mother's
Right,
Days,
right.
They come to you for the
Exactly.
pampering. They come
Yep.
to you for the plants.
Yep.
They come to me for the food.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
What is your ideal?
I would go to Float Magic for Mother's
Yeah.
Day.
I was gonna
I would
say.
come to Yellow Brick for
Yes.
Mother's Day.
That's
guys would
my
come to
ideal is
me
brunch
for-
at Yellow Brick, but you know.
I
but-
should qualify this time. Shawnee runs Float Magic. Kathy runs Yellow Brick. I
Yes.
wasn't trying to qualify them at the front. I was trying to focus on moms. But yeah, what would you do?
So, I mean, as I was really thinking through this, so I had a son on Mother's Day. So his
Oh shit!
on Mother's Day, and it was snowing actually
Ugh,
the
so you
day
have
he
to
was
share.
born.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
share a birthday with children. I get
yes,
it.
and it's
that's
great.
right.
I mean, it was my very first Mother's Day, and I had a child on Mother's Day. It was beautiful, right? And
What a
luckily,
gift.
I didn't get my
Sorry.
picture in the paper because I looked terrible. I hemorrhaged and the whole bit. It was terrible. I had a really hard birth, but anyway,
Did they
but
do pictures of the They did back
they
then. Didn't
they do a few where like they did mothers that had babies on Mother's
Oh,
Day.
oh,
And luckily, I had him like at 9:30 at night, so there was
They-
other mothers
The,
that got their
the
pictures
reporters
taken.
that
Yeah,
already handled it.
yeah,
Fabulous.
it was already due earlier that
It's like
night.
the first
so
baby of the year, and the mother's just like, "Why are you
Right,
taking my
exactly.
picture?"
But I think so. I relinquish decision making. I don't want to make decisions
Mhm.
on Mother's Day.
know.
I don't
That's
want to
amazing.
because for years I was making my mothers and grandmothers brunches on
Mhm.
Mother's Day, or I was providing arrangements for everybody to get together on Mother's Day. And now I just go, I'm not making any decisions on Mother's Day. And right now I spend a lot of those times with my son over where he's living in Bend right now. Every
Yeah,
Mother's
You
Day.
go over to your oldest.
I've been over to my oldest and he's making the decisions. And so yeah, I welcome not having to make
You know,
decisions.
what we could do this
Mhm.
Mother's Day.
Hmm.
We could all go get tattoos.
Well, someone else is deciding it apparently.
I would think that through before that happens.
Yes, I would make the decision prior
We
to
are your
Mother's
friends,
Day.
but we might not always be your friends
Yeah,
if we
that's
pick
true.
something wrong. Okay, see, terrible ideas. I need ing therapy very badly. It's something I can control. It's a pain thing. Only people with tattoos really understand that. So, yeah.
So,
What
yeah.
would you do?
Yes, Kathy.
I would have the day off.
And not be in that hellacious
I
brunch. I
have-
mean, that wonderful, busy, very profitable
I
brunch.
have worked Mother's Day. I mean, long before I was ever a mother. But
Oh, right.
I think
Restaurant
I've worked
business, man.
Mother's Day for
Ooh.
17 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And being a stepmom / mom for the last 7 years, I've worked every one of them.
Yep.
So I would love to just have the day off and maybe just not do a thing.
Yeah.
Maybe just hang out at home. I'm great being around my kids. If I didn't have to work, I would, just love to hang around at the house and spend a Sunday, which is like, as a restaurant owner, it doesn't happen very often. So
No.
just spend a Sunday at home and still not make decisions, still maybe let them, plan a few things. But I would love the day off on a Mother's Day.
That's not happening this
luxury.
year, is it?
Yeah.
No,
I didn't think so. So we can
Maybe one
celebrate
day.
Mother's Day the Monday of that week. I will be in hell in that point, but we're 7 days a week, 24 hours a day at that point. So
Well, and I
Next
think
level.
even like, so children who are listening to this podcast, or adult children, maybe, for those mothers who you can't seem to spoil them on Mother's Day, just providing that at some time for them where you're very aware that they don't get that break.
Yeah, I think what I was thinking about when Jen said, like, I would love to go for a float at your business. I think for me, when I am gifted, whether it's Mother's Day or any gift, right? Anytime that someone's gifting me something and the message is like a long-term, hey, I know that you need a break, right? If it's like a package of floats to your center, or if it's an entire gardening kit where they know that that's like therapy for me, right? Like when it's gifts like that, that feels so meaningful to me, where, they know it's something that makes me happy and is a break for me.
Wine tour through Italy, Steve.
Yes.
Wine tour through Italy. He's listening now. Wine tour through Italy. Maybe France. Depends on what her feeling is.
Or both.
Right?
They
Might
are
as
close to each other.
The Coteron. Yes.
Yeah, and each mom wants something different.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and there's I get asked a lot, do you like flowers for Mother's Day? I'm like, yeah, cut flowers. Everybody wants cut flowers. If you give me a geranium, I'm probably going to find a dull object and shove it in your eye. But, details. I'd get my own damn geranium. I'll be okay. But there's something to be said for something that speaks to the mom. Now, if mom has a black thumb, don't give her something live. That's not the answer. Maybe it's a plastic plant. Maybe it's a succulent that you just put a reminder in her phone once a month when she pays the mortgage, water the succulent. I mean, maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's a cactus.
I
'cause
kill
she's
more
prickly bitch.
succulents
I
than
don't
I
know.
kill
It could be
houseplants.
anything.
Just to be, I kill more succulents than I kill
I do.
houseplants.
Kill succulents like it's a job, and I own a greenhouse. What does that tell you? I love the idea of succulents. I think it's the gateway drug to gardening. I give hour-long seminars to professionals on it. I can't keep them alive to save my life.
That's how
My husband loves them because they're so geometric, and he's a carpenter, and so it like plays to some like inner, cardinal need he has, and I'm just like, ugh. And so he's like, quit bringing them. He'll come out to the greenhouse and be like, I'm going to plant succulents. And then he goes, you can't take care of these. I was like, are you going to? And so every once in a while I'll get like a patio one for the patio table outside and just let it rain when it does.
Let nature take care of it.
And then he'll like hyper focus in on it. And I'm like, you do you, buddy. Like, our husbands or insignificant others all have a little niche, and it's like, just let them go.
Yeah.
So like, I can't be the tech person at home. I run an entire network at the greenhouse. Don't worry about it. But I play real stupid when we get home. Because it's really important to him, because it's not important to me.
Yeah.
Like, but if he gets in and cooks, I'm like, okay, you got to cook the way I want you to, which is silly, but I have food allergies. So I have to.
You are food allergy.
I am just walking. I just filled out like an application to be at a trade show we're expected to be at in October up in Coeur d'Alene, and it was like food allergies or sensitivities. I was like, well, Jennifer has, and I filled the whole box. I was like, I didn't even write them all. I only wrote the 4 big ones. I was like, I'm that guy.
I'm out of room.
There was 5. There was 5, but yeah, I'm that guy. What you could do is take me to a gluten-free bakery or an artisan bakery that has a couple gluten-free stuff. There's a really fun coffee shop in Boise that just had some yummy stuff the other day when I was up there in January. Yep. That's where we're at, because that's how time works.
Well, that
as
was
a business
only
owner.
a few days ago.
What a week this year has been, and vice versa. So there's also a thing that happens where we don't, as moms, overstimulated. When I get home, I'm like, what happened? I feel like I just got kicked around in a hamster wheel all day.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
I had a day of that the other day. Like, I'm just craving yoga, and I'm usually a CrossFitter. I can't even get myself to the gym right now because I'm so overstimulated. And I'm terrified because we're filming this in March. It releases in May. I'm not even into the big swing yet.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God. And so I'm trying to like just step back and be like, okay, what can you control today? One step in front of the other. Like, don't
And
borrow
also
trouble
what
from the future.
feels approachable.
Uh-huh.
Like, with how elevated I am.
What can I do right now?
What would actually feel good? Because for me, honestly, the idea of CrossFit, I've thought about joining a CrossFit gym so many times, and that feels overwhelming to me. Being around that many people, a loud space, the like competitiveness, like it doesn't feel right to me. And I'm like a solo worker outer, you know,
Yeah.
like I want to
Mhm.
go to a gym, earbuds in my space,
Just you.
complete, a decent workout and get the hell out of there. And so I get it.
And
Like,
you were a team sports girl.
I was, yeah, for a very long
Well,
time.
and so like I'm a little bit more the camp of our good friend Jamie over at Windsor's, and she was a college athlete just like you
Mhm.
were. And I kind of am like on the fence. Sometimes I need that calm, that just like if I'm running or doing like an endurance, but like it's just me. I don't need anybody else
Mhm.
with me. Like I'm gonna suffer and go through that all by myself. I don't want anyone with me for
Yep,
that.
same.
Yeah,
Yes.
no.
You'll never catch me with a running buddy.
Yeah, don't. I'm not that guy. Like, I
No.
appreciate it. I understand the psychology of it. No, I'm not doing that. But get in a CrossFit environment. Like, there's a time that it really works for me, but I
Mhm.
have got like I'm trying to like desensitize down.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so right now I've been leaning into I'm doing yoga at 5:45 tonight if you want to come. Janelle and I'll be there.
Mhm.
And then we're gonna do booty tomorrow, and I'll lean into that. And then I've been working on bringing in Ziva meditation. So I don't know if you've read this. It's Emily Fletcher. Stress Less, Do More, something is the book. But
Mhm.
Ziva meditation, I've been trying to like do it at least a couple of days a week, and I'm trying to build a habit just to slow down. And then I've been doing somatic
Breath work.
not breath work, but
Mm.
exercises to
Mm.
just, I'm trying to move through the trauma of my body, and I haven't got
Mhm.
really regular with it yet. I'm trying to rebuild my morning routine. Daylight savings time is messing with me. I
Mhm.
know I'm 2 months past that at this time this airs, but oh my goodness. I have had a really hard time with sleep. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's stress,
Yeah.
doing it to my body and
Mhm.
autoimmune disease and all
Yeah.
that fun stuff. And I was really close to remission with my grapes. And we had enough things happen with work and the redesign and then some personal family stuff that it all compounded. I am not in remission quite
Yeah.
yet. And I'm like having to look at my symptoms because that stress is doing so much damage to
Yeah.
my human
Absolutely.
that I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get blood work and then go back to the doctor, and I might have to go back on the medication. I don't know. Like, I'm on the smallest dose ever. I'm so proud of myself as off all pharmaceuticals and just on natural supplements. And I was managing it, and I was like, yes, it can be done.
Yeah.
I can get on the better life insurance. Yes. The things you celebrate in your late 30s and early 40s. But it was one of those things where I realized I was like, okay, do not be hard on yourself. That is not something you need to carry.
Right.
You just need to take a pulse on where you at now. What do you need? What does your body need? I mean, the only thing that pisses you off is you already prepaid for the damn gym membership. And I'm like, okay, it's just money. You can make more.
Mhm.
It's fine. Like, don't
Just a
overthink
transaction.
about that.
Like,
But it is a community I do love. But I've had a hard time with the mornings.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if I don't get it in the morning, it's really hard to get there in the afternoon.
Oh, for sure. I'm the same way.
Yeah, it's got
Well-
to be a morning thing. But yoga seems to be a lot better because if I'm meeting one of you guys there,
Mhm.
it's
Like
it's
two
easier.
birds
Yeah,
almost.
and
You're-
I mean, we might not even talk to each other except a hi and a bye because we're
Yeah.
going straight into class. I mean, that's what's going to happen tonight. But I at least get that moment to like, hey, I'm here sharing space with you.
Yeah.
And I'm here doing something good for my body, even if it's at 107 or whatever degrees.
well,
Even sorry. go
no,
ahead.
I don't want to interrupt.
Oh, I was just
Oh,
going to
we
say,
interrupt when the boys are here all the
even
time.
the
so-
nighttime classes, sometimes I struggle with them because I've already had this like very overwhelming day
Yeah.
at work. The amount of decisions, the amount of bad news.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, the refrigerator's broken. Oh, by the way, we got a 1-star review. Oh,
Yeah.
by the way, this happened. This
Right.
broke. So-and-so is quitting. Like, there's just always something, right? And so by the time I reach the end of the day, the thought of trying to get my headspace to a point where yoga is actually beneficial,
Right.
that can be really
Yeah.
hard for me.
Well,
Because I just picture myself being in that room and not really being present there.
When
I
do you
just-
catch yourself like when a barista comes to you and says, "Hey, the coffee machine's broken or the fridge is broken,"
Mhm.
you take on their stress? Because I catch myself
Oh,
doing that.
uh-huh.
Like, so
Always.
we had a Facebook post because we were under new management, and a customer had said, you know, I liked the old manager. I'm gonna go find my flowers somewhere else, which was fine. Like, my team was like, "Do I delete it?" And I said, "No, you're gonna let it fly," because we were watching other customers come in below it and say, "Oh, I'm so excited," because they knew the new manager.
Right.
And little punch for Mother's Day. He's meddling. There's going to be fun stuff up there that is just retails for Mother's Day. So definitely visit this week. There's some cool stuff. So I'll put that pitch in. But it was just kind of one of those things that were like, oh, that. And I said, you know what? At the end of the day, we haven't done anything wrong. Nobody was harmed, and it's okay. It's not everybody's going to be 100% happy. Your job is not to make everybody happy. Your job is to grow a quality plant and sell it.
Mhm.
And so they'll even get punchy when we sell all the plants too early. I was like, you did your job. And they're like, we're out.
This is a good thing.
And I was like, no, this is the sexiest thing in June is empty greenhouses.
All right.
And they're like, "Ooh." I'm like, it's okay, guys. Now, if they're empty on the 30th of June instead of the 8th, yeah, the 30th is better so we can hit the whole June market. I agree.
Mhm.
But if it's empty on the 8th, we're still not going to be upset because it meant it's old.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was disease and it all died, different conversation.
Yeah. Yep.
But also, going back to your point of giving yourself grace, there is a very unrealistic expectation of what a parent is. And in this valley, particularly in the Magic Valley, it seems to be even more stigmatized.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's a Keeping Up with the Joneses country club crowd thing or if it's just, and mind you, we all skirt that crowd. So I got friends in that crowd. Don't, no harm, no foul. But I'm not going to have your storybook perfect parent postings on. No.
Yeah.
No. I don't care.
Well,
None of those opinions of others affect how my kids are happy or their needs met at the end of the day. None of that matters.
mhm.
It's really funny when my daughter would be like, don't put that on Facebook. And I stopped. I was like, who do you know on Facebook? And she was like, well, so-and-so's mom. I was like, and that affects you how? And they're like, well, I was like, I'm not friends with her. And I already sent the picture to your mother, so it's outside of my control. So
So if mom posts it,
yeah, it's not my fault.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to say is, as you know, so I used to do body competitions. That was a point in my life
Yep.
when I was like, my body's too far gone. How can I shock my system back into being in shape? And this was in my early 40s because unlike these ladies, I'm almost 50. And so back in those early 40s, I was putting myself in that position, and somewhere in my psyche, it's like, well, if I'm not extra, if I'm
You and I started hanging out right after those comps.
yeah,
That's
and
right.
if I'm not doing something physically, if I'm not taking care of my body that way, then no wonder I feel the way I feel, right? Like I feel like that narrative I've played into a lot in my life. And I feel like recently, like especially because of what I promote through my business is this rest and recovery
Mhm.
and sleep. And all of those pieces of our health are very impactful in the way we deal with stimulation
Yeah.
and in the way we deal with
Yeah.
stress. And wonderful. If it's a 5 a.m. workout that is helping you get through your day, I commend you. Like that's amazing.
You need to be going to bed at 8 p.m. if you do that.
I would have to go to bed, yes, 7:30, 8 o'clock
There's
to
only
accomplish
you can
that.
only manage that if you're taking care of yourself.
Yes. And so and
Otherwise, it will.
it will catch up with you,
Yes, it will.
especially as you get older. And that's the reality of the life I'm living right now is understanding how my lack of sleep and my like I can feel extremely apathetic toward my business when I'm overstimulated
Yeah,
and I'm overtired.
Same.
And my clients don't deserve that. My
Yeah.
children don't.
Well,
My
your employees
significant
don't.
other, my
Yeah.
employees don't. Nobody deserves
When
that
you-
from me.
Mhm.
This is where we're going to drop the F-bombs. When you look at your pocket and there's no fucks left, and you're like, I started with 5.
Yeah.
I lost them.
I
along
don't
the
know where
way.
they
Like,
went.
It's
But
9 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stick
And
it.
we're done.
And we're, yes.
I got nothing.
Yes.
Or someone will come to me and I'll be like, is this important now? And they're like, nah. Like, cool.
Good.
Thanks.
We'll
Come back tomorrow.
we'll revisit later. But
So I'm not in the right headspace. We actually here with top ownership, right? Or top leadership, with my brother, myself, and Dave, our director of operations, we've kind of been the triad until we brought in EOS and redesigned the company. And now there's 7 of us. But before, we would literally, if one of us was triggered, and so first off, anger is the easiest emotion for the body to feel. Like, period, end of story. And sometimes with women, that involves lots of tears. We're very upset. We're very angry, and we're leaking. And that makes us madder. And we're just like, "Oh!" And at those moments, we actually look at each other and it's like, I'm going to go take a long lunch. I need to get off site because if I walk around, I'm going to fire everybody. I mean, on Monday in our group text, I almost said, hey, win for the day. No homicide, no firing. Like, winning. I mean, but also celebrating the small victories. Like, as an overstimulated parent, especially when you've had really hard days, it's really, there's a whole bunch of science and research behind it, and I've read tons of it. But basically, if you can find something, I mean, gosh, I read this thing where, like, look for heart-shaped rocks. And to me, I'm not a warm, fuzzy person, but I'm a heart-forward person. I lead with my heart.
And you're a rock person.
I am definitely a rock person. But, and like, I'm like, look for heart-shaped rocks. Like, nobody got time for that shit. But it clicked something for me. I'm like, oh, you're looking for the positives. And I'm a cautiously optimistic person most of the time. And I used to be a super optimist. Now I'm cautiously optimistic. That's the crutch of life, I think. But I have a hard time getting my head around finding heart-shaped rocks. I can find cool colored ones. I'm really good at that. But it made me realize, like, I just have to find the small win. Yep. I have to find the small, like, so when I had a business life coach, like, hey, what was your victory for the week? What was your win for the week? In our EOS L10 meetings, we always start with the segue, and that's what is a personal win and what's a professional win. Both of my wins that I shared in our meeting this morning was, hey, I did the terrible job of picking up dog poop so I could make it so that I didn't have to leave work to go pick up my daughter. And the other one was, we killed some flats in a greenhouse because of freezing temperatures. But because of that, we've learned some things. And they were just like, God, you just turned 2 negatives into a positive. I'm like, yeah, because that's how thick it was. And I had to find a positive. Yeah. And yeah, we lost a couple $1,000s worth of product. That cost me some money. Ouch. Okay. What did we lose? What did we gain from it? So it was a case of, and I was telling this to the employee that had their little burst on me yesterday. I said, I'm going to put a question in your head. How is this happening for you? And she stopped. She goes, what context are we talking about? And I said, okay, do you feel like life is happening to you right now? She goes, yeah, I feel like the days are happening to me. I said, how are they happening for you? Yeah. And she's like, oh. And I said, it's deep. I know. But if you can start to look at the hard situations that way, things get a lot lighter. Yep. And it is real hard when you're in the thick of it, when it's just heavy and you've been taking it all day and you're just, by 10 o'clock, you're ready to stab somebody. You're just like, okay, how's this happening for me? I had 2 past employee situations. Both went very badly. One I'm still in the middle of. Thank you, Steve McRae, for helping me. We're going to just, thank you, Steve. You don't get thanked on a Mother's Day podcast very often, but enjoy. But one of those things where, a past situation in 2021 that went so badly, that was so emotionally draining, that was so hard on me, that was outside of my control. And I was just doing everything I could to manage just to protect the company, and our name. That hard made this one a lot more manageable. Yeah. And that's one of those situations you don't always know right away, but it was one of those, I had an aha in the middle of it. And I'm like, wow, that happened so I could survive this. That's awesome. And so I got to celebrate that. And that was a weird, and I can make anything a positive. I'm a weirdo like that, but it's kind of a superpower, and being able to lean in.
Well, it's the grit that is developed. Resilience, like you can't get that resilience and that grit without the hard. It doesn't just automatically happen. And so,
and our 4th that would have been here today is the person living grit and hard
right now. Yeah.
We love you from a distance. Our blow up doll.
Yes.
Over across the river, Jamie. We almost had a blow up doll.
Would have been perfect.
It would have been perfect.
We did wine instead.
Yeah,
Right.
we're drinking in your honor. But I mean, find the positive. And
Mhm.
if you are a significant other, if you are the other party I don't care what gender you are, it doesn't matter to me. We are very inclusive here.
Mhm.
If you have a mom in your life that you are trying to honor, ask her, what would she like? Would she like an experience? Do you know she always wants red geranium hanging baskets? Do it. Does she want the day off and breakfast in bed? Does she want to go to a concert and, headbang to Metallica? Like, what is it? Yours might be Tool, because you and I
Yes.
always end up at Tool concerts. I've never been to a
Please.
Tool concert, actually, but
You haven't?
I haven't.
Oh my
Brandon
gosh.
went when he was down in
I
Scottsdale.
know.
I know.
So yes,
That's right.
we have to
Yeah,
experience that
it's time.
together.
It's
yes,
time to start buying concert tickets.
Love
So,
Tool concerts.
Yeah, my stress relief is buy concert tickets on bad days. That's another little tip if you
For
having a
people
really
shopping
terrible
for
day,
Jennifer.
buy something that you can look forward to. Like,
Mhm,
so when I'm in the thick of it too, I will start to plan a vacation. It
Mhm.
just gives me something to focus on.
Yeah.
When my daughter was in surgery, I started planning a party for my husband's 40th birthday. I was like,
Mhm.
we're going to talk about superheroes and villains.
That's
We're having a
right.
costume
That
party.
is when that came out.
My daughter was in surgery while that was happening.
Yeah.
So instead of me freaking out and like filling in all the gaps, I redirected my brain and put it on something, because the other 3 parents were there and capable. I was taking care of the other daughter who didn't, like, we were having pizza. I was not having pizza, but we were chilling and we were
Mhm.
watching shows and we were fine, but it gave me something else to focus on. And so
Sure.
sometimes
Yeah.
having something else to de-stimulate you that you enjoy, like mine is going to the bathtub. The door is locked. There's no fingers coming under the door. That is a parent thing that I, thank God, have not experienced. I can pee alone. My dog doesn't let me, but
You
that's
get
it.
oil.
Yeah,
That like-
I tell you,
It
it's
will
glorious.
happen for you, Kathy,
Do you
again.
poop by yourself?
Yeah. I shit completely in silence by myself.
Wow, Jen.
It's tremendous.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Something to look forward to.
Okay.
No, that was a line I drew. Like, I was like, this is never going to be okay. Like, actually coming in as the third parent, the girls always crawled in bed with daddy. And so those two were apart a year before I met Brandon. And I met Brandon through Macy. Ironic. That's just how the world works sometimes. And I think I stayed the night in the house 5 times with the girls before we moved in together a year and a half later. Like, I was super like, it's either all or nothing, and I'm not ready for the all yet. So I'm not going to quite do nothing, but we're going to gradually get to all. We're not going all in at the beginning.
Mhm.
Like, that was just not in my wheelhouse. I was the parent, or I was the friend out of my group that they were like, you get married and have stepkids? Like, what? No, that's strange. And now I'm definitely a mom. You guys have both seen me with my kids. And they definitely treat me as mom. And I'm no longer it was, oh, that's Jennifer, to that's my Jennifer, to that's my stepmom. And so they take ownership of me. They're proud of me. I'm very proud of them. I'm very much part of their lives. But I told Brandon about 6 months before we moved in together, I was like, I'll be the bad guy if you want, but I don't really want to be. So you've got to start to separate this. And so he's like, you're not going to let him barge in the bathroom. I was like, I'm going to go postal if that happens. I'm not that parent. I'm not okay with it. Do they still bother me every once in a while? Yeah, but bother's probably the wrong word. Like, they're self-sufficient at this age.
Mhm.
But yeah, the fingers under the and I think of every mom. Anytime I close the door, I'm like, I get to do this. And it does not open. Our HR gal, she has 9 kids. Only 3 of them are hers.
Oh.
2 of them are adopted and 4 are her new husbands. And so there is 9 children in her home.
Wow.
And I'm like, do you ever get to use the bathroom by yourself? She's like, girl. I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling you right
No.
now.
I don't even think my pants hit my ankles before I hear, Mommy, where'd you go?
What you
This
doing?
is not hide and seek.
What you doing?
Buzz off. Let me give you your tablet for 10 minutes so I can have some peace and quiet. Oh, that would be like 5-minute episodes. Like just drop the tablet, walk away.
I
Yeah.
didn't get tablets
No,
when
I
I
know.
I
And
didn't
I
have
have
that.
that's a new luxury.
I'm not a tablet parent either. Like my kids only got tablets on the weekends because I didn't want them to be screen addicted. And of course, kids mimic. They don't listen. So if Brandon and I are sitting on our phones every night, like that's what my kids see. I'm like, oh, we got to work on this.
Yeah.
So we have like no phones at the table rule. Of course, Brandon and I are both sitting right here. But and so we're just careful about it. And then we limit their screen time on their phones on our family link. But that
But
destimulation.
you know what? Even this, I didn't even think about that until you mentioned phones. Like what a contributor to overstimulation as a
Yeah.
business owner.
Yeah.
The amount of notifications and messages and emails and
You're
texts
getting
from
it
employees
from
and
every
Ooh.
angle.
Well, and you
When
can't.
you wake
big
up to
one.
text,
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
anxiety.
oh, same.
Well, so I
It's
woke up this
6:45,
morning.
knowing.
and
I woke
already
up this
have-
morning to
yeah.
you guys' text. I was like, oh, it's just the girls.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
These are stress relief, but even you can't even walk away from the phone because
Right.
you're like, when I'm too far away from my phone, I'm like, wait a minute, I might need to be.
Okay,
Yeah.
My
so do you-
employees might be
do-
getting
do you
hold of
realize
me.
And
Our-
also, you can get reprimanded by certain
Yes.
customers or employees if you're not answering quickly enough or
Right.
responding quickly enough. It's like, why aren't they answering? Why can't I get a hold of them?
Yeah.
Like, there's this expectation that as a business owner,
Yep.
you are
always
always
on, always on,
always available.
especially if you're a business that's open on the weekends.
Mhm.
It's almost like,
So you know what I've done in verbiage? So I read this somewhere. I don't ever say I'm sorry. I say thank you for giving me a couple more minutes. I don't ever apologize for how I'm showing up. I say thank you for giving me a couple more minutes here. Thank you for having your patience. Like I turn it around and thank them.
yeah.
And that's helped me like, hey, I don't have to talk about what's going on. I just have to show up in this moment.
And I don't have to apologize for being a human.
or a business owner dealing with other shit that's more
Right.
important than what you've got,
Yeah.
princess, buying 2 baskets in retail, thinking you need to be wholesale and get better pricing. Like, God love you, whoever you are. Thank you for helping pay for soccer and swimming lessons. But dear God, like, I'm sorry. It is not the end of the world that you didn't get the right red geranium. I have 7 other red geraniums. Same size, same price, and prettier. That one bumps more. Buy that one. Yeah, it's okay. Give space. Like that's something I pride myself on. I give people space. Like I don't expect things from you. You're having a shit day. Like I've apologized to Kathy for just showing up and just being fire. I was murderous that day. And I was being drug out in an event that my kids didn't care to be at in terrible weather, and I wanted to stab my husband, and I needed alcohol, and that didn't work out in my favor, and that's fine. And that was just that day. But I, saying, hey, I apologize. And I do it with my kids too. If I show up the wrong way, I say, hey, I'm sorry. That wasn't fair to you. This is what was going on. That doesn't justify my behavior. I'm going to show up better for you next time. And I'm big on it's not an excuse. I will take full accountability for my actions. That's really important to me. So personal accountability is a big piece. I'll even take responsibility for other people's actions. The hardest thing at work, and I do it regularly, and it's not hard for me, but it's hard for like my parents to watch. Like I'll take responsibility for something that happened in the greenhouse. And be like, hey, and say I'm talking to a customer and it happened out on our operations team. Say, I'm the one who has to talk to the customer. I'm the one who has to own it. And somebody was just being a shithead. And it's just that simple. And then I'll take full responsibility for it and say, hey, you know what? We screwed up. This is what happened. And I don't blame it on anyone. Said, wires got crossed. We were 2 people short and it just got missed. I apologize. We're going to make it right this way. And it's really just solving the problem. But then you've got, Miss Diana Ross or somebody in retail. It doesn't matter. Diana, rest in peace. She's dead, right? I know what I'm talking about. Right? No? I'm getting this mixed up. Tina Turner.
Tina Turner died.
I'm getting mixed up. Sorry, they look similar in my brain. My bad.
I'm like right
Sorry,
now.
my pop culture is weak. Weak. So regardless, some prima donna in retail is having a little tantrum and is insistent on seeing the boss and the owner. I must speak to the owner. I love those calls. I'm like, I would be happy to talk to them. Okay. Thank you. Fact checking. God,
That's
do
what I
not
thought.
listen to me.
That's what
I am
I
so sorry.
I'm gonna really
My-
hope she doesn't watch this
I
episode.
know.
Yeah, the little podcast from Jerome, Idaho, right on her feed. Don't hashtag that. So at
No,
that
do
point, like,
hashtag
I'm
that.
dealing with all these things on fire in the back of the
Mhm.
house, right? So there's 150 employees here at Peak. I've got 10 in retail, and little Miss, prima donna is her spending her $100, which to her is a lot. And I thank you so much for coming in, but don't beat up on my staff.
Right.
And so that's when I
Understand that we're not a corporate. And even if we were corporate, like
Doesn't even
that's like
matter.
it does.
You're
It's
still a
almost
human.
like you're being removed from that human element as
Yeah.
a business owner.
Well, and I walked in and I think I've told Kathy the story. I'd been fresh out of CrossFit. I'm wearing like ridiculously bright leggings. All leg tattoos are out. The sleeves out. I've got hair in a messy bun and I've got a tank top on. And I walk in and I was like, somebody needs to see the owner. And this lady looked me up and down. She's like, you're the owner? I'm like, in the flesh. What can I do for you? I love those calls. And that's what you look at people and you're just like, I hope you have the day you deserve. And you still want to meet their needs, and you do. And they're not usually being unreasonable. They're just having a bad day and ran into the wrong answer, and they're
That's
flaring
what I was
too.
just gonna say.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
They have no idea what you're
me
going
running
through.
into you at that event.
Oh.
I didn't know what kind of day you had
Oh,
had.
no
but it was
idea.
evident to me it was not a good one. And I had to check myself and go,
No,
okay.
she's not okay.
she's not okay.
She's not
Right? And I have to remind myself of that constantly.
Mhm.
Well, and I've
Not
seen
just
you.
around customers,
I've
but
seen
employees
you with
too.
that look
Oh,
on your
totally.
face, and you're like, I'm like, oh, she's been taking it left, right, and
Yeah.
center all day. Like, is there anything you need? A shot of tequila in your coffee? Like, how can I help? And
Yeah.
we just know that. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember still an event you had, and you didn't know your staffing situation. You didn't know how many people were going to be there. The four of us showed up like ready to serve. Like, fine. Yeah,
We even
we're
dressed
ready.
up, and it was fantastic.
And we didn't have to do anything because your staff was like, they
Right.
clearly don't know what they're doing.
Right.
We got to
They're
handle
like,
it.
you guys are
it
going to
wasn't
make our
busy
job
enough to need
harder.
it, but
Yes.
it was just funny. But those are those times, like, sometimes you need help. And so what is your mom in your life that you're honoring this Mother's Day? What does she need?
Mhm.
And is she's the woman who solves all her own problems? What does she like to do that sets her soul on fire? Is there a piece you can give her? Is she a huge coffee drinker? Should you take her hands-on and make a coffee cup with her so that she has her own personalized, like you're making a memory? That's an experience. What is that for you?
Yeah.
So give space to the overstimulated mothers in your life. If you are a single mom or a stay-at-home mom, bitch, you are a CEO, and I honor you. If you keep my children alive and teach them and deal with every other parent in a classroom setting, also, you're a freaking saint. Thank you. Daycares, nannies all fall into that as well.
Yep. Absolutely.
You bring sanity to the people like us who need all the help we can get with our sanity. And then if you are working for someone who doesn't see you and doesn't hold that space for you, we do see you and we do hold that space for you. Please do come patron our businesses. But at the same time, like, what do you need? Think about that. Do you need an hour to yourself in the morning? Does it make sense to go to bed earlier so that you get an hour of uninterrupted time?
And don't be
morning.
afraid to ask for that.
And when you're not getting it, say, hey, remember that conversation we had when I said I needed this? This is where it's not meeting that need for me. I'm not trying to be unreasonable. I'm just trying to bring it to your attention. I literally had that conversation 2 weeks ago. Like, hey, you said you'd help me here. He's like, yeah, but I did. And I'm like, yeah. And then this happened. And he's like, oh, I didn't think about that. I'm like, I know. So I'm just bringing it to your attention. I'm in no way mad or critical. Just need you to hear me. Okay, great. Let's have dinner. Take that heat out of it, because it goes smoother. So any parting words?
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
This is not a topic that I feel like is discussed very often. Like, we touched on the social media stuff and how motherhood is often put in this very, very bright, sunshiny, angelic light. And
It's like
it doesn't always look like that. In
like
fact,
the
it rarely
50s
does.
step
And so
mom thing.
I feel like
Oof.
identifying these things that make it really hard, as much as we love our kids and love motherhood, I think it's really healthy to talk about this stuff. So I appreciate you inviting me to be a part of it. I feel like I'm a poster child for overstimulation.
Oh, yes, you are. all three of us are just like,
What made you think to invite me, Jen?
why would I come to mind at all? What do you mean?
I'm so perfect over here. Well, I've seen all of us at one time or another just be like,
Being
"Oh
very
my
human.
God.
Yeah.
Yes.
I cannot handle
Yes.
the life today.
Yep.
And
Yes.
I love that I can send in our and build your own tribe of women. Like we were
For
super
sure.
intentional in building
Yeah.
this group of friends. Like I didn't know a year ago that I'd be good friends with Kathy, who owns this awesome cafe that I absolutely love going to, but can never quite make it to except brunch on a weekend because of my own day job.
Mhm.
But I lean into any way I can participate. And then having Shawnee Center, it is a pain in the ass to get to sometimes for me just because of my own schedule. Because
Same.
you're right. Like,
Right?
and you're like, cool, I have Tuesdays. Oh, that's the only day you're closed.
I know.
Like,
I wish
get
I
it.
was open Tuesdays for you,
know.
Kathy.
I 100% get it. And so, like, thank you for being a part of this because I
Mhm.
do think it is not talked about. And like,
Yeah.
and I catch myself out there every Mother's Day and I'm just like, and I always attributed it to, I'm in the business of Mother's Day. It's like, no, that's not the problem. It's a gender stereotypical, like,
Yeah.
it's a big problem. And the men in our lives, when I've started to explain to my husband that I'm just overstimulated, I've
Mhm.
got to come down. And for him, that's television. I have now invested in Loom earplugs because
Mhm.
television is what gives me anxiety. I'm like,
Yes.
turn it on and I'm
Yes.
going to start
Yeah.
twitching. Like,
Don't
I
watch
don't
TV
binge watch.
anymore.
I don't
Mhm.
do that. Like,
Yep.
it's just not who I am. I'll read though. And so if I can put the earplugs in and turn them to full blockage,
Mhm.
I can just zone out and it's great. I had a whole bullpen. I have a sales bullpen down here full of people and they're in full conversation. I had this door open. I was in my office. I could only hear muddled noises. And I was
That's amazing.
like, oh,
How nice.
this is $60 is the best well spent $60 I've ever had in my life.
I'm
So-
getting some.
Oh, they're tremendous.
Yeah,
They
when
come in
you
my
shared
office.
that, I was like,
Oh, Janelle,
yeah.
man, she's
Mhm.
fire. She
Yeah.
had it figured out. Well, she's got an ADHD boyfriend who puts on all these noises and then walks out of rooms and keeps it all out. I'm like, oh no, that's way too much stimulation. She's like, tell me about it. I'm like, okay, I get this. So take that space for you. If figure out that thing that fills your cup. What's helped me is I figure out what fills my cup. And when I hit those low points, what do I need to go back to?
Mhm.
And then I kind of have them ranked as far as like, this one helps me in this situation, and I'll figure out which one feels best for me. And then if I can't do it, I can't do it. And
Mhm.
that's okay.
Yep. For sure.
Any parting words?
Grace. Give yourself grace.
It's okay to be
It
overstimulated.
is okay, and it is okay not to be performing at your peak capacity all
is
the time.
Also okay to tell everybody to fuck off and leave you
It
alone.
is, and I've done that a lot more recently in my life, and it is great.
And you can say,
It's a
fuck
great
you, I love you,
practice.
I need some space.
Just give me space.
It's not
Yeah.
you, it's
I'm gonna
me.
say that to my 3-year-old.
See how it goes? To be like, tablet, mom? Yes,
That's
sweetie.
code word for tablet. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
no.
with that, we invite you to find something that fills your cup that is destimulating in a way that helps you. And if it's a stimulating thing that helps destimulate you, all the better, because the concert is nowhere near destimulating.
Sometimes overstimulation is
it
destimulating.
kind of washes it out.
Yeah.
Occasionally. It depends on the activity and depends on your love for the activity.
Mhm.
Right.
But,
Right.
like skiing feels very stimulating to some people. Like that is a peaceful thing for me.
Mhm.
Like that is, unless you're face planting on a cat track.
Or looking for a phone that got lost in the snow.
We have stories. Okay. With that, we invite you to go live life in full color because plain is pretty boring.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.